The debt you paid off last month is not the most expensive thing draining your wealth right now. Your work ethic is. You're responsible, you avoided the traps, you stayed disciplined when everyone around you was financing furniture and leasing cars they couldn't afford. And it worked, the debt is gone, the balance is zero. That should feel like solid ground. But if you're being honest with yourself, the number that actually measures wealth, your net worth, isn't moving the way it should. You're earning more than you ever have, and somehow the gap between where you are and where you expected to be keeps feeling the same size. That feeling isn't failure, it's a signal, and almost nobody in personal finance will tell you what it's actually pointing at. Because the conversation about wealth drains always starts and ends with debt, debt is visible. Debt has a number, debt has an interest rate you can see on a statement and fight with a plan. What nobody's calculated out loud is this: misdirected work effort has an interest rate too, it's invisible, it compounds silently. And it runs in exactly the same direction as debt, except it wears the mask of productivity. Every extra hour you put in without a wealth system underneath, it isn't building your future. It's funding a financial architecture that was designed to survive, not to accumulate. And the longer that architecture runs, the harder it becomes to interrupt. That's not a motivation problem, it's a structural one, and this structure has a name. Here's the mechanism, and this is the part most financial content will never show you. When you work harder and your income rises, three things happen simultaneously, not sequentially, simultaneously. First, your spending baseline rises in proportion to your energy output. This isn't conscious, it's psychological. Behavioral economists call it hedonic adaptation, the brain's mechanism for normalizing any new level of comfort almost immediately. Earning more feels like permission to spend more, because the brain interprets effort as justification. You worked for it, the upgrade feels earned, and within months, what felt like a reward becomes the new floor. Second, the opportunity cost of those extra hours accrues on things that don't compound: lifestyle maintenance. Short-term relief, small upgrades that quietly become permanent baselines. These aren't luxuries in the traditional sense. They're the invisible cost of having earned more without redirecting where that earning goes before the brain claims it. And third, this is the one that separates people who actually build wealth from people who chase income their entire careers. Your financial architecture hardens around survival, not accumulation. Think about what that actually means. Debt has an end date, you pay it off, the drain stops, you feel it close. The work ethic drain doesn't have an end date. It runs parallel to your career, silently, invisibly, compounding, until the day you make a structural decision to interrupt it. Most people never make that decision. Not because they lack discipline, because nobody showed them what they were actually looking at. And here's what makes this genuinely unsettling. Income anchoring is real. Once your brain anchors your identity and your lifestyle to a certain income level, every raise doesn't build freedom, it builds a new floor. A new minimum, the gap between what you earn and what you actually keep shrinks because the baseline follows the income upward automatically. You're not spending recklessly, you're not irresponsible. You've simply built a very efficient engine, one that burns every drop of fuel it produces. And here's the cognitive reversal that most people never reach. The problem was never the debt was the visible enemy, you fought it, you won. But the moment the visible enemy disappeared, the moment the statement hit zero, the invisible one accelerated. Because your capacity to generate income increased, your hours got more valuable, your output got stronger. And without a system designed to intercept that output before lifestyle could claim it, the invisible behavioral rate compounded faster than ever. You were running harder on a treadmill that was speeding up every time you pushed. The treadmill doesn't care how fast you run, it adjusts. So what does this look like in practice? It looks like someone earning $90,000 who feels as financially tight as they did at $55,000. It looks like the person who paid off their student loans and somehow found that the money quietly redistributed: slightly higher rent, slightly better car, slightly more frequent dinners out. Nothing dramatic, everything incremental, everything feeling justified. It looks like the person working 60 hours a week who genuinely cannot identify where the income goes because the drain isn't in one place. It's distributed invisibly across 100 small decisions that were all made by a brain trying to match lifestyle to effort. The math here is quiet but brutal. Every dollar that gets absorbed by the baseline before it reaches a compounding vehicle is a dollar that works against you indefinitely. Not just this year, indefinitely, because the compounding that didn't happen in your peak earning years in the high-energy window when your income is climbing fastest cannot be recovered by working harder later. That's the real cost, not what you spent, what never got the chance to grow. And the most disorienting part of being inside this loop is that everything feels productive. You're working, you're earning, you're making visible progress. The net worth statement tells a different story. Most people glance at it, feel uncomfortable, and go back to working harder because working harder is the thing they know how to do. The loop closes around them. But here's what actually breaks it, and it's not about cutting spending or working less. The mechanism is interception. Not reduction, interception. The behavioral drain exists because income reaches the brain before it reaches a system. The brain processes the raise. The brain signals the upgrade. The lifestyle adjusts, and the compounding channel never sees the money. The interruption is architectural. Redirect a fixed percentage of every income increase into a compounding vehicle before it enters your general spending stream. Before the brain anchors to it, before it becomes the new floor. This is called a pre-commitment mechanism. You're not fighting the treadmill with willpower. You're redesigning the track before the brain even gets on it. Specifically, when income increases, a raise, a bonus, additional income from any source, a minimum of 50% of that increase should move into an index fund, a retirement vehicle, or a taxable brokerage account before it touches your checking balance. Not after, before. The remaining 50% can do exactly what the brain wants to do with it: upgrade, reward, normalize. That's not the enemy. The enemy is letting 100% of every income increase normalize before any of it compounds. This reallocation sequence doesn't require discipline in the traditional sense. It requires one decision made once that runs automatically. The system does the redirecting. You never have to fight yourself. The debt you paid off gave you financial relief. Real, it mattered. But the wealth gap you're experiencing now isn't a debt problem. It's an architecture problem. And architecture gets redesigned not by working harder, but by deciding once where the next income increase goes before your brain decides for you. The people who actually build wealth over a career aren't necessarily the ones who earned the most. They're the ones who made this structural decision early and let compounding do what effort alone never could. Because effort has a ceiling. The hours in your day, the productive years available, all of it has a limit. Compounding doesn't have a ceiling. The question isn't whether you work hard enough. You clearly do. The question is whether the work you're doing has a system underneath it, or whether you're still running the most efficient engine you've ever built, burning every drop of fuel it produces. That one decision doesn't take 60 hours a week. It takes 5 minutes. Make it before the next raise arrives.